industry as it is today is through the Japanese.
Absolutely.
Every big player came up through the Japanese. The ways of working, the sort of vehicles, it all came from there.
It's the story of two halves. Motorcycle, they've always been in a catch-up race, but when it comes to scooters, they continue to rule the roost.
A bunch of them just have one or two products that are creating the wave.
Absolutely.
With Suzuki, it is literally the Access and to some extent the Bergman.
Right.
Their motorcycles, I'm sorry to say, there's not much going on there.
It was way back in 2018, 2019 that Yamaha really took a call that, mainstream mass market 125 sub 125cc segment is not something that they want to cater to.
Kawasaki takes a very different approach. They bring in mostly big bikes, which is very nice, but the few decisions they've taken for the Indian market have generally panned out being bad decisions. Hello and welcome to Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. This week, we're here to talk about the Japanese effect on the Indian two-wheeler industry. They have had a profound effect on our history. They continue to have a huge effect today. And while there are many frustrations that I will share, there is a lot to talk about. So, Ketan, where do we start?
Now, I think they are, like you mentioned, their role is absolutely critical, right from the mega partnerships that we've seen, Hero Honda, that gave us the country's largest two-wheeler manufacturer, Kinetic Honda, that led the revolution of automatic scooters in the country. We had Escorts Yamaha, we had TVS Suzuki. Because of Suzuki's partnership with TVS decades back, we see the quality depth at TVS Motor Company. So clearly, I mean, Japanese two-wheeler manufacturers have really played a pivotal role when it comes to Indian market. But that was growing when
the industry as it is today is through the Japanese.
Absolutely.
Every big player came up through the Japanese. The ways of working, the sort of vehicles, it all came from there.
Absolutely. And I think it was the decades of 60s, 70s wherein Japanese two-wheeler manufacturers were like ruling the world. I mean, they literally took over major parts of the continent around the world. And clearly, given the fact that Honda itself started with catering to the mass market, and their next passion would have been beyond evolved markets to look at emerging markets. And that's when we saw the era of 80s wherein we saw Japanese two-wheeler manufacturers partnering Indian two-wheeler manufacturers. We saw Bajaj Kawasaki as well. Kawasaki had an important role to play when it came to the motorcycles that Bajaj came out with eventually on their own. So clearly, I mean, they had a very critical role. But then we saw the next innings, right? Post the millennium, wherein we started seeing an independent Suzuki, an independent Honda motorcycle, an independent Yamaha. And that was a different era of Japanese two-wheeler manufacturers. So I think over the years, they saw that, this market has tremendous promise, and it was becoming bigger and bigger when it comes to the global TIV. And they knew that if they had to have a bigger say in the market, they had to go on their own. And we've seen as to how these brands individually have evolved. I mean, recently or rather, not too long back, we did a podcast of how Honda is actually, closing in to the number one position. Yeah. We've seen the rise of Suzuki motorcycle. They are already at 15% of scooter market. And Yamaha has made a nice pivot from loss-making two-wheeler manufacturer to a sort of a premium motorcycle maker and yet making money in India. And not to forget that, each of these companies, for them, India is amongst the top 1 or 2, 3 markets in the world.
For volumes.
In terms of volumes.
Yeah.
In terms of volumes. I mean,
that's a fascinating thing about our market is that volumes-wise, it's enormous. Margins-wise, maybe not so much, and which is why the Japanese are so cautious with us, probably.
Absolutely.
Which is something we'll get onto. I mean, from an enthusiast standpoint, and I imagine lots of people feel like this out there, where are the enthusiast bikes? Honda is doing a good job now. Honda is sort of the standout one here. Honda's on another level compared to the other 3-4 manufacturers, the Japanese manufacturers. But Yamaha is quite frustrating. Suzuki, they're all very slow. They seem to have one hit product that comes out every 5-10 years, and they ride that wave, and then they sort of almost act like when it's too late.
Absolutely.
So why do you think that is?
I think, Rishaad, when they started their independent journey, like most of the market, their focus was on mass market and executive segment. And by that time, the scale that Hero Honda had reached, Bajaj had reached, TVS on its own had reached, it was very hard for them to compete in that space. So in a way, they were all starting on a back foot. And it was really hard for these Japanese motorcycle makers, despite having incredible engineering expertise, but the cost structures, it was a challenge. So I think the product portfolio and what they were fighting against in the Indian market, I think it was from a back foot. But on the contrary, if you see the evolution in the scooter space, given the fact that the automatic scooter market was such a small thing, and Honda in a way really literally created that segment and rode the wave. And if you were to look at the segment share in scooters and motorcycles, they're chalk and cheese, you know. I mean, if I'm not wrong, at its peak, Rishaad, just around COVID time, Japanese two-wheeler manufacturer scooter share was almost 75%. And we barely had Indian players having a share. I mean, Hero did try, TVS did try, but the share was phenomenal. Even today, it is about 60% of the overall scooter market comes from the Japanese two-wheeler
And
makers.
that's considering how popular the TVS Jupiter is.
Yes.
And the rise of EVs.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
when EVs are selling, 100,000 units now.
Absolutely. Accounting for almost 13-14% of the market. So, and that is one of the reasons why the share of scooter has gone down from almost 73-74% to about 60% at the end of the last financial year. So when it comes to ICE scooters, it's hands down, 1 in 3, or rather 2 in 3 scooters. It comes from a Japanese two-wheeler manufacturer. So I think it is a story of two halves. When it came to motorcycle, I think the splendor and passion was etched so deeply with a lot of these mainstream mass market motorcycle buyers, that it was very hard for the Japanese two-wheeler makers to actually make an inroad there. And Bajaj had an incredible start with its Pulsar range for the step up, the guys who were wanting to move from a mass market to a premium end of the market. So I think it's a story of two halves. Motorcycle, they've always been in a catch-up race, but when it comes to scooters, they continue to rule the roost, according to me, Rishaad. I don't know, what's your view? I mean, how have you seen their evolution?
What I find frustrating from an enthusiast point of view is that they come out with a great product. Yamaha is a perfect example here. R15 and FZ, 2010s. They're still going along. They're still the bread and butter, and there's no evolution to those models.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
And that's where the Indian manufacturers have been able to act faster.
Absolutely.
Come out with something bigger and better than that. And when I say Indian manufacturers, you can also include KTM and now Triumph in that.
Absolutely.
Through the Bajaj connection. And I feel like this is where Yamaha is really, not just Yamaha, Suzuki as well, where they're really missing out.
Absolutely.
Kawasaki takes a very different approach. They bring in mostly big bikes, which is very nice. But the few decisions they've taken for the Indian market have generally panned out being bad decisions. The W175 was the wrong bike to bring to India.
It's only sold in India, right?
No, that's the Ninja 300 is the only bike. I think India is the only market in the world right now with the Ninja 300. The W175 was too small capacity for our market when you're putting it against bikes that have better performance. Even Royal Enfields have so much better performance than the W175. So that was a mistake. They should have brought the W250 at least. Another mistake is that they went and localized the Ninja 300 platform, which is in today's terms an ancient motorcycle. It was replaced by Ninja 400. The Ninja 400 was replaced by Ninja 500, and in India we keep pushing the Ninja 300. They should have localized the 400 at least.
Right.
They've just brought back the Versus 300. It's sold nowhere else. But for India we get... So Kawasaki has made a series of, I think, bad decisions, but got to commend them. They're the only ones who have this big portfolio of big bikes. Honda is catching up. Thank you, Honda. Generally, when Honda does something, the others follow. Would love to see that. But I've been thinking about why the Japanese makers work like this, and I think it comes down to two things. One, they have been burnt in the past.
Yes.
I feel like they've been burnt through bad decisions.
Right.
You bring either the wrong product or you bring the right product at the wrong price.
Right.
It fails, and then you say, "Oh, India's not ready for this."
Right.
And then you back away and you go back to the small capacity bikes. The other thing is, I think it's a function of how their leadership in India works. And this applies to all of them.
You're right.
That the Indians are not really in charge. We have someone coming from Japan, and they generally have a really short term.
Yes.
It's about 3 years.
That's right.
So a new person comes in, he settles in, he takes a good few months to understand India, because it's the whole market. I mean, just for their commute from home to the office is this overwhelming thing. And every time we talk to a new Japanese leaders, like, oh my God, your roads, and I'm learning, I'm meeting dealers.
Right.
That takes time.
Absolutely, it does.
Then by the second year, he's got his plans in place. This is what we'll do. This is the kind of things we'll focus on. This will be the product strategy.
Right.
And by the third year, it's time to go back.
Yeah.
And then another person comes in. And this is another human being with a different way of thinking. Maybe it's in line with the previous guy. Maybe he's got his own ideas.
Absolutely.
And there's just this sort of disruption and not a long-term focus.
I agree with you, Rishaad, and that has been the case with majority of MNCs here in this country. For some, I'm sorry to say, it is a punishment posting, and for some, it is like the pivotal posting. And if you deliver well in India, you actually go on to become something big in the global market. I think there are these strengths of Japanese two-wheeler manufacturers that they are very strong in systems, processes, the rigor in engineering, and going on ground zero, the gamba check, and understanding the consumer, understanding the user. But by the time the project is ready, the market has moved, the management has changed, and then you are caught napping as to what next. And more often than not, we've seen whenever we've had a strong leader at helms, the growth is pretty visible.
Yes.
The growth is pretty visible. But unfortunately, if in that 3-year stint, if some things were to go wrong, the extension of term is very hard to come by. And we've seen some CEOs actually getting an extended term because they've delivered in the Indian market. So it's a very challenging stint in India. And given the fact that, like I mentioned, India is amongst the top 1 or 2 markets in the world, and at least in the last 15 years, we have seen the role of India becoming bigger when it comes to catering to the global markets. It was a different story, say, pre-2010, when the focus was to cater to this burgeoning, growing two-wheeler population. But after 2010, it was about rethinking of India as something that could cater to the global needs. First, it began with setting up local R&D centers, then it began with catering to global needs, and now we are actually, with the harmonization of BS6 norms, we've started seeing more and more bikes actually making its way back into Japan, in Europe, and in US. So, I guess we've seen different stages of Japanese two-wheeler manufacturers in the country, and it is really hard. I think this obsession of I was just having a chat with another colleague of ours, and I was telling him that their view is that they want to get everything right. And he corrected me by saying that actually the problem, Ketan, is the opposite. They fear that they don't want to get anything wrong.
Yeah.
And in the process, Rishaad, we have seen projects languishing, projects getting extended beyond 24, 36 months. They are okay to drop projects. But unfortunately, given the pace of change that we are witnessing in the global market, including India, I think the consumer moves on.
And can't afford to be this slow.
Absolutely. Yeah. The speed and agility has been their biggest bugbear. And if it coincides with the change in management, it adds to the problem.
Yeah.
And again, you mentioned about the fact that what is the autonomy that the Indian executive has? Again, it's limited. It's limited.
I mean, we have people who are at higher positions.
Yes.
But I'm not sure how much they're doing in terms of strategy and decision making. I mean, you have a better insight into this.
Yes, Rishaad. So it's a big challenge, right? I mean, and I've heard of stories of how you have Japanese compatriots here. The meetings happen in Japanese language where Indian counterparts are sitting there, part of the meeting. That really shows as to how well do they think, or what is the role of an Indian executive sitting in the meeting. It's really sad. I mean, they keep their technology close to their chest. A lot of those products are designed back at home. And Indians in India actually are more of executors. And
in some cases, even today,
it's sometimes really frustrating to see that there's lack of ingenuity, Rishaad. I mean, they are so stickler of systems, processes, and it has its own virtues and merit. But sometimes in a fast-changing market, you really got to think out of the box and think differently, think innovatively, something that pulls the Japanese brands back. But if you were to look at it from a positive lens, their products are known for their quality, reliability, longevity. So there's definitely merit in how they operate. But given the pace of change, I really wonder if that way of operating will have resonance with regards to the future.
You made an interesting point about them being afraid to get it wrong. because when they do get it wrong, which can happen to anybody, I think there's a long-lasting effect of that, of even the successors being afraid to touch this area,
Absolutely.
that we should not make that mistake again. So let's just not do anything. Let's ride the current wave. And if you look at it, a bunch of them just have one or two products that are creating the wave.
Absolutely.
With Suzuki, it is literally the Access and to some extent the Bergman.
Right.
Their motorcycles, I'm sorry to say, there's not much going on there. The 150 Gixxer, the 250 Gixxer, the V-Strom. Where are the new products? I mean, it's been so long. Yamaha, R15 FZ. The R15 is a phenomenal product, but it has everything it can possibly have. It has a quick shifter. It has everything. It's not like you can keep throwing features at it. There needs to be something new. They have the R3, but the R3 is an old product at a unreasonably high price because it's not localized. They should have been thinking about getting that customer onto something big, something localized, something bigger than the R15.
Right.
But now they're in a situation where, what do we do next?
Yeah. So, I mean, while you were speaking, Rishaad, the thought came about what is the share of Suzuki motorcycle. And when I was doing my research, I was really shocked to know that Suzuki's share in motorcycle is less than 1.5%. Or rather, no, it's less than 1%.
It would be less than 1%.
It's less than 1%. It's 0.17%. It was 0.34%. And they've attempted to bring in so many different motorcycles into the Indian market. But they've realized that it's very hard to crack into that space. So rather go back to your, strong core and veer towards scooters. And that is what we've seen, Suzuki wanting to bring out with the new Access and range of other scooters.
It's unfortunate. I was literally having a conversation with someone in our office today, not part of the editorial team, who wants to change his V-Strom 250. He's like, it's a lovely bike, but I'm not very happy living with it because I can't get basic parts like brake pads and things. They just don't have them in stock. The entire city of Mumbai doesn't have brake pads for a 250cc Suzuki, which shows that they themselves are not really focusing on their motorcycles. And I think that's really sad because Suzuki makes phenomenal products and India deserves to have more of them.
It's two different extremes here, and like Honda has literally tried to capture every potential segment in the marketplace. Given the ferocity of competitiveness in the marketplace, I guess Suzuki and Yamaha have had to take hard calls. And it was way back in 2018, 2019 that Yamaha really took a call that, mainstream mass market sub 125cc segment is not something that they want to cater to. It was a great decision because till that time Yamaha was really bleeding and losing money like crazy, and there were fears of whether Yamaha is going to continue to operate in India or no. The common sense prevailed. They moved towards premium end of the market, and we have seen the company coming back into the green and the premium portfolio doing well. And I think in the motorcycle space, I think they in the premium motorcycle space, especially 150 to 200cc space, I think that's the space that they made their own, and that is where they have a decent segment share. So it has been an individual brand's tryst of finding out their blue ocean or white opportunities to participate in, because it's an unforgiving market. And we've spoken about this before as well. Only 2 out of 10 products succeed in this market, and they are so obsessed with not failing and protecting their bottom line, answering to their shareholders. So they are actually willing to wait it out, willing to not fight certain battles,
right?
Rather than bleeding and losing money. So it's more of a strategic call. But having said that, given the fact that for each of these brands, India continues to remain amongst the top markets. So we are definitely seeing them investing further in the future in models and capacities and an expansion of portfolio, hopefully.
Yeah, sure. I mean, while I'm quite passionate about the fact that certain things should be better, we have to acknowledge that they are doing better than ever.
Yes.
Suzuki, Yamaha, Honda,
yes,
all of them.
Yes. Let me give you some numbers here.
Yeah.
When it comes to the overall motorcycle market, the share of the Japanese two-wheeler makers has increased from 17% in FY20, which is March 2020 financial year, to to almost 24% at the end of last financial year. Now, that is single-handedly been driven by Honda motorcycle, given the fact that they've come out with Shine 100 and the Unicorn has started doing much better, and Shine continues to rule the segment. So we've seen that in the motorcycle space, we have seen the Japanese two-wheeler manufacturers really expanding their share. In the scooter space, like I mentioned earlier, there is a slip that has happened, but that is because of inability to participate.
I think there's a slip in the overall numbers, but individually, if you look at it, Suzuki is doing very well, and Activa's doing
right. So they're doing well in the respective segments.
Yeah.
So like for Suzuki, 15% of the scooter market, which is very good. Yeah. However, they are inconsequential when it comes to the motorcycle space. For Yamaha, they're doing well as far as they are, the core of the market, which is 150 to 250cc space. There they have a decent sort of portfolio, and for Honda, they are nibbling away at each and every different segment of the market, and they're wanting to wean away share from Hero. So there is a method to how they are going about their strategy, and the most critical part, and which is what we focus at Autocar Professional perspective, that the business has to make money. When business makes money, it gives confidence to the local management and the global headquarters to reinforce and spend more money into the Indian market. And that is something that we've seen pretty regularly about, focus on India, expansion in capacity, expansion in portfolio. Suzuki is setting up a new motorcycle manufacturing facility. Honda setting up 2 new motorcycle manufacturing facility, one for ICE and one for EVs. Yamaha, given the fact that their volumes are still less than 1 million, they do have enough capacity, but we can expect more products coming from Yamaha in the future. So, these are islands of excellences that they've created for themselves. But yes, dil mange more. And given the fact that, and to me, whenever I look at some of the global markets and the models that the Japanese two-wheeler manufacturer, it's surprising to see as to why don't we see those models into the Indian market.
I've thought so much about this. Maybe it's the fact that, you go to someplace small where there's this beautiful portfolio of bikes from all sizes and capacities and shapes. But those are smaller markets that are easier to manage.
Yeah.
In a country as big as ours, that's as widespread as ours is. If they were to bring a bike down, to think about supply, part supply, to think about training, to think about all these things and spread it across the country for the same sort of volumes that you would get in a small market like UK or something. Yeah. I understand there are drawbacks to that, but there should be more. Now, to be fair, like for example, for the past 2 years, based off interactions with company management, we have reported that so-and-so products will launch, particularly with Yamaha.
Yeah.
They have told us they're coming. We have been taken abroad to ride them, and they have not yet come. Now, we have an explanation, which is a nice thing to have. At least if you don't have the product, you have an explanation why it's not here. So the reason why Yamaha has not launched their big bikes, their CBUs, is because the E20 rule took them by surprise.
Oh, okay.
They were prepping to bring the 700cc twins, the 900cc triples, and then this E20 deadline came in, and I think it's...
October.
Yeah, it's October. So that caught them off guard, and even though these are CBUs, they don't want to do it in any other way except the right way.
Yeah.
So they say, look...
Glad to hear that at least they're protecting the consumers.
Absolutely, because you don't want to own one of those things and have corrosion happening in your fuel tank 3-4 years later, and then you spend so much money on it, you're going to be really upset. They want to do it the right way. Doing it the right way, the Japanese way, takes time.
Absolutely.
So they say, we know we need to do it. We are working on it. The bikes are in homologation right now. They will come. So to all you enthusiasts out there waiting, you're going to have to wait a little longer, but it's not like the plans are cancelled. So that's there.
Yeah, and when you look at Honda and Suzuki, how do you look at them? I mean, Rishaad, so, we were just discussing about EICMA and what an amazing place that is, wherein we see the global two-wheeler, the best of the best in the world out there and some of the best bikes out there. And when you look at why those models are not into India, we've discussed this before, but, what according to you is the reason behind not having some of these big bikes or say a mid-sized motorcycle? I think Royal Enfield continues to rule the roost.
I think that's what they're missing out on. It's easy for me to say, bring the R1 and bring this. It's nice to shout out for that, but there has to be sense for the company. Like you said, they have to make money. It's the middleweight bikes that we are not getting.
Yeah.
And why are we not getting it? Because there is some effort involved in localizing them. There is cost involved in localizing. If you don't do it, you're going to end up with a prohibitively expensive product.
Right.
And then you have to ask yourself, was it worth bringing it here at all?
Right.
Because if you are trying to sell a Japanese motorcycle at the cost of a premium European motorcycle.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense, yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Right.
So Suzuki, I think Suzuki is the one that really has very few eggs in their basket. They're great eggs, they're golden eggs,
Right.
but they need more.
Right.
There needs to be more than just 2 scooters that are doing well for you.
Yeah.
Yamaha is a little more spread out, but it's an age issue with their portfolio.
They need to do a lot more, right?
They need new products, not updated products.
Right.
I think there's something exciting coming from Yamaha by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Not sure what it is. They're very cagey about it, but something to look forward to. And it's 40 years of Yamaha in India this year.
Right.
So they want to celebrate that. 70 years of Yamaha International and 40 years of Yamaha India. So it's a nice year.
Right.
So they want to celebrate that.
Very often we hear about this, whether they need to do a sequel of RX-100, right?
Funny enough, I mean, the last 3 years ago, I interviewed Chiana-san.
Yeah.
Was the previous MD in charge of the company. And he said, we're working on something. And it's going to be inspired by the RX-100 with those characters, obviously 4-stroke, but not 100cc, bigger than that. We wrote about it. And now when I interviewed the new MD and chairman, there doesn't seem to be much happening over there. Which, like you said, there are delays, things get put on the shelf, maybe they on the back shelf, maybe they decide they don't want to do it. So that RX project suddenly is not something anyone wants to talk about.
Right.
Is it ever going to happen? I don't know. Is it just very delayed? Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's suddenly not something so exciting. I think from Yamaha, what we can look forward to is probably the XSR 155. Finally, enthusiasts have been craving that bike for years and years. It's been available in all markets, Asian and European,
Right.
but not in India.
Right.
They've got the R15, they've got the MT15. The MT15 brand is established. I think they were trying to protect the MT15 and not bring the XSR in. And now that the MT is established, they'll probably bring the XSR in. I think that's going to happen. NMAX was at the Auto Expo.
Yes.
They say they've got good feedback of it, but they're worried because the XSR is not done. The Aerox is not done.
Aerox is not done that great, yeah.
But my point is, how well do you expect the Aerox to do?
Yeah.
The Aerox is not a conventional scooter.
Yeah.
It's not a comfortable scooter. And it doesn't have the practicalities that people would expect. And NMAX it has a central spine, but it's more of a normal looking scooter. It will do better than the Aerox, but the cautiousness is still very much there. As for adventure bikes as well, so many people are getting into it. Scramblers, adventures, not the Japanese.
Yeah, that's the difference, I mean, if a product would have not done well for any of these Indian two-wheeler manufacturers, it would not have stopped them from trying something new. Yes. Probably something like what happened to Aerox. I think then the entire team and the management goes back into post-mortem mode as to what went wrong.
Yes.
And then, unfortunately, it pulls them back. I think speed and agility is so against the grain of what the character of what Japanese two-wheeler manufacturers are all about. The times are changing. I think the Chinese and Koreans around the world have shown that, you can actually come out with products in a very short interval.
Yeah.
What I hear from our friends in the industry is that still at Yamaha and Suzuki and Honda, the life cycles are 24 to 36 months. The Indian guys have started delivering that in less than 18 months, 24 months.
And the Chinese guys even quicker.
And
CF Moto has become a massive headache for every European and Japanese manufacturer in the premium segment. Not so much for India. The Indian manufacturers aren't too bothered by it right now. But they have to respond.
Yeah,
they have to learn to adapt to these things.
I mean, and which is what I feel. I think it's about time, and the core characteristic is so against the sign of times that we are in, Rishaad. It goes against them. But when you talk to the friends who actually believe in Japanese way of working, and they say that, the vision of the next 10 years, next 15 years, really going down to individual family, trying to understand what exactly their needs are, trying to address, filling those gaps. There's definite premium to all the effort that goes on ground zero. Yes, like we mentioned, there'll be products that will fail, but then you'll find a secret sauce and you'll find one product that does well. And in case of Honda, we've seen Shine. In case of Suzuki, we've seen the Axis. In case of Yamaha, we've seen the R15 and MT and FZ brand. So I think it's about very hard for one to change their character. So it's going to be challenging, and Indian brands are becoming bigger and more aggressive. But it's also heartening to see that there is financial commitment, there is commitment towards adding more products in the future.
Yeah.
So they are definitely a critical part of the Indian two-wheeler industry, and they will continue to have a much bigger say in the future. Electrification is one space where we've often spoken. I'd like to get your views. We've seen the speed and agility that we were talking about, as to how late Japanese two-wheeler makers are. The electric two-wheeler space has been the buzzword for the last half a decade. And all that we hear from them is that we're studying. What's been your assessment?
Well, to give you a great example, a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed the new Yamaha MD, Itaru Otani. Very nice gentleman. And he shared something with me that sums this up beautifully. They are working on their own global platform.
Right.
But we are slow. We know we are slow, but we do things our way. At the same time, we need speed. That is why we have partnered with River.
Interesting.
We have partnered with River for their speed. To use their speed, we will not be making big changes to their platform. We will use their platform similarly. There'll be smaller changes that don't interrupt the speed. And that's why Yamaha...
Oh, that's an honest
the interview goes out in this month's issue. If you want to read the whole thing, it will go on our website at some point as well. But I found that to be very...
compelling reason.
Yes. So we are working on our own technology. It will come. But we are also trying to address the fact that our speed is traditionally slow. So here's our solution.
No, it's such a heartening thing to see that they want to partner.
Yeah.
And I believe they've had partnerships around the world as
with
well.
Gogoro in Taiwan as well.
Amazing. I mean, and probably that is the only way, I guess, the Japanese two-wheeler manufacturers can actually accelerate and be amongst the wave that is going on in the marketplace. And that is so nice to hear.
But I mean, to sum it up, I suppose the fact is that they have been a key element of India's two-wheeler history. Yes. They are not going anywhere. In fact, they are doing better than they ever have before.
Yes.
And I don't expect to see revolution from them in how they operate, but maybe we'll see an evolution in them trying to adapt to meet the modern times. What do you think?
No, I think very well put, Rishaad. I think it's not the revolution, it's the evolution is what Japanese two-wheeler makers actually look forward to. And that's the beauty of it. They think 10 years, 20 years ahead. While we may get carried away with volumes and market share of a couple of years, 5 years, but in the long run, and we've seen it with Honda, I think they stay the course. They stick to their knitting. It has its own downfalls, but when they get it right, they get it right very well. And we've spoken about the commitment from them in the past as well. So they are changing. They are changing for better. You spoke of Yamaha, about Honda in our previous podcast. We did mention that they want to come out with bigger motorcycles, bigger scooters, more electric vehicles. And another sign of commitment is that they want to have a dedicated electric motorcycle manufacturing plant in the country. Which means what? Which means they're going to have global products manufactured in India and they're going to be shipping it around the world. So we are seeing them changing. Probably sometimes I feel they're a little restless. They know at what speed that they are operating. Probably we get moved by some of the action that we see in the startup world, especially in the electric vehicle space. So yes, according to me, they are late when it comes to EV space. But going by their conviction and the way they are going about their future plans, the 10 models that Honda motorcycle has spoken of till the end of the decade of EVs, a lot of them will come into India. There's a range of electric scooters being designed and developed at Suzuki motorcycle as well. And here's one scoop, Rishaad, that Suzuki motorcycle may potentially do something like a Navi, for the B2B market.
Electric.
So yes, electric. So so they are looking at the white spaces where the potential growth opportunity could be. Did meet up with the global management at the Bharat Mobility Show this year and did ask them about the potential of doing a performance electric motorcycle. And they were very curious to know from us as to what do they think about the need for electric motorcycles in the space. I said potentially a Gixxer EV. Why not? And they were all ears. They were listening to us. So there are range of electric products coming in from Suzuki motorcycle as well. And like what Otani-san told you, I think there's going to be a global electric model and there's going to be a river-based electric model. So they are coming. They're going to take their own measured time, and hopefully when they come in with solid product. The initial products that we see are disappointing, to say the least, at least from Honda. But they've assured us that these are just the initial phase, and you're going to see a lot many models which will cater to a broader spectrum of the two-wheeler buyers. So I think they're changing. They're changing for better, and hopefully we'll see a different Japanese brigade in the Indian market in the future, Rishaad.
Yeah, I think for me, closing statements, the Indian market has evolved. It's continuing to evolve. Products that are being made here are good enough to be sold abroad, good enough to go back to Japan by the Japanese manufacturers, which is fantastic. And as the market is more accepting of premium products, the Japanese makers will be more responsive to them. I would like to see more consistency in leadership durations and also in leadership vision from the Japanese. I think that would really help them. And just a little more willingness to try.
Yes, absolutely.
Fingers have been burnt in the past, but it's a different era.
Absolutely.
Give us a bit more than what you're currently doing.
I absolutely agree, Rishaad. And I think I don't know whether it'll go down well, but give a little bit of autonomy to the local management. Give them that freedom to contribute. You have local R&D centers here. I think what Chinese car makers are to the global two-wheeler market, I think now Indian two-wheeler makers are now actually knocking at the global stage, and we've proven the quality standards have already been proven. And you mentioned as to how some of these motorcycles actually are going to go back to Japan, and they've been going to Japan. So there's definitely skill, capability. There just needs to be a little bit of faith, confidence that India can do more. There's need to be a little bit, they need to be bold. I think I feel the biggest challenge, according to me, for Japanese two-wheeler manufacturer will be the speed. I think the pace at which the startups are evolving, the pace at which the legacy players are responding to the startups, I think Japanese are operating at their own speed. I just hope there's that sense of wanting to hasten up a little bit, even as you stick to your core. I think partnering is one interesting avenue through which you can cater to the Indian market. So I think they're going to be a little bit more bolder, and the portfolio is going to be catering to a larger spectrum of the market, and they're going to have a much bigger say when it comes to the future growth of not only the Indian two-wheeler market, but how India evolves as a global manufacturing and exports hub.
All right. So all in all, hopefully good times ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And with that, I think it's a good time to wrap up. As usual, the Deep Drive podcast will be back next week at 11 a.m. So look out for that. And if you're on the move, you just want to listen to this, we're also on Spotify and Apple Music.